So let's talk about both of these shows. Why both? Because with these seasons they are more integral to each other than you would guess, but there is no real crossover. I don't see in Cloak and Dagger the episode which connects to Runaways season 3 episode 8. That probably happens after Cloak and Dagger season 2. So that's about continuity. If it turns out to be otherwise, I will make a short second video with these because I did not see Runaway season 3, 8, 9, 10, and Cloak and Dagger 9 and 10. And there are a couple of episodes which I want to discuss deeper because that's the whole reason I'm doing this video right now. Anyway, so Runaway season 3. Turns out season 1 and 2 were all just the setup for the story. That's an interesting way to make your series. I mean, yeah. The whole. So first you have to make them run away, which is the whole season 1. And season 2 is about most the children don't really achieving anything meaningful, and so what remains is infighting of the villains. There were a bunch of different in the comic books. Some were mutants. I don't think they are in the TV series. I mean streaming series. Others are humans, others are aliens. I don't know the time travel. I think the time traveler is just from the present and just took a bunch of things from other periods or something like that. Or I'm not entirely sure how they did the dinosaur and that kind of things. Either way. So the first 4 episodes, 2 to 4 episodes, I don't remember exactly. You know, there was the whole socialization for the holidays and all that, and also this is not a short amount of stuff, and I'm generally good with tendencies and events, but not as good with hard data to remember. I'm good at picking out and putting them on a spreadsheet, but either way. So now all the grown-ups, aside a couple who are kinda irrelevant, run away and just living wherever and no longer part of the villain conspiracy, are aliens. There are 3 of them, 4. We spend a lot of time head scratching in who is the god. Obviously, with the audience, if you have like a middle school level education and brain cells, then you will figure out who the god is. But anyway, we also spend a lot of time in the alien matrix. They have 3 hostages, stored food if you want, although they are eating other people. It's just to keep up their host body, otherwise they would just have a deteriorated state. I don't know why they do that, because in season 1 and for almost the entirety, there was this one alien guy and he was like eating one person in every year or something, and got the most out of it. So the rules changed if you care about season 1, but I don't, so I prefer it this way. It's pretty okay. They are building a Stargate to get home to the alien dimension or whatever. Sure, why not? I'm not sure if their original form is just some pure energy, because the father wants to bring with him his half-breeds. So there is an in-villain dynamic, politics and all that. Who will be going, because the gate can and will only, and also at minimum, bring 4 of them with it. And they have like 2 offspring, and there is the sound who is super evil, so you better watch out for it. And the daughter wants to take over the family business when father steps out, and father hates mom, but there is this whole family dynamic. It's interesting, and it doesn't take away too much time. Although Mr. Masters from Buffy, he was played Spike. I guess in this part he was in his plastic surgery face. He's looking atrocious, but whatever. Then we are pretty much done with it to like episode 5. So that was the whole story. We have a 10 episode season with 2 seasons of build up, and we closed it in episode 4 of season 3. That was the whole story. The kids won. There is no demolition of Earth and all that. I don't make this up. Anyway, they set in the dark dimension or something or another, or it is the afterlife or the hell version of it. Who knows? And they just, it's just a whole new story without any introduction. It is just an excuse to, we don't know how to continue it, we just make a hard cut. And they are trying to quit it, and they do. To episode 7, they are all out of it. What did we learn from it? We set up the next villain for the season. This Morgan Le Fay. Yeah, the wizard chick from Arthurian legend. Was it Knights of the Round Table and all that? I have no idea why, how is it. Sure, she's a witch or whatever. We will see what happens in the last 3 episodes. Sure, why not? And it will probably be crossing over to this dungeon dimension, because they have no power, and the dungeon dimension was where they didn't have power. So let's jump to Cloak and Dagger season 2. It's final season for now, and the writing is still good, very good. They setting up this season as the continuity of the previous season, and they keeping this down. That this is kind of a real life, close to real life situation world where not everything is fine and dandy when you beat the villain, and when Cloak is still trying to do superhero stuff, jumping on drug dealers and or weapon. It is drug dealers, but later in the season it becomes women trafficking. That's an interesting thing because there they collect for the business women without hope, so without hope they don't try to escape. So that's a pretty clever machinations. You can guess the twist if you think about this for a second. Now, it turns out that in the real world, when you are not fighting super villains, the cops are doing their own stuff. So it's all undercover cops and snitches and organization and trying to figure out the whole structure of the criminal organization, and they are not happy when you just take and bring them 100 kilo of heroin, cocaine, or whatever you want to. And anyway, it's you take from the streets. I mean, from the storage, 100 kilo or something. But this shit is brought in by the tons. So what did you actually achieve? And this is a question that Serious asks you. And these are good questions. And these are good progressions. Of course, not of course, but even our protagonists even have their powers evolved, but it's not on a game-breaking scale, so and it's natural, so sure, why not? I mean, Dagger gets an AoE area of effect attack, and Cloak gets be able to teleport others. Now it turns out that the cop lady who is also a protagonist in this secondary protagonist, because Cloak and Dagger are on the same level. So she's a secondary protagonist, and turns out at the end of last season she not just turned into a murderous psychopath because of arson energy or whatever, but because she was under extreme pressure, stress, and all that kind of thing. She literally split into a good and bad half. So the bad half is super aggressive and killing criminals left and right. So this another can't even kill the target practice dummy. She always misses because what if I heard that? When you think about it, it's kind of funny. Either way, in the end, the villain half is sucked into the dungeon dimension of Cloak, but here the dark dimension works differently. It's not some kind of afterlife or between the dimensions thing. Multiverses, if you want. Yeah, it kind of works like that, but it's a whole dark place where you are pretty much alone. But you remember there was the evil cop, the villain of the first season. I mean, Assad the Roxxon Company. He ended up here too, and his character change is pretty much only understandable if we assume this dimension actually works like in Runaways for him. So I suggest to watch the first 7 episodes of Runaways before watching the the whole season of the Cloak and Dagger. Done. What is there? I don't know. There are a couple of mini dimensions there, and oh well. Let's talk about it a bit later when we talk about the villain here. So, episode until episode 5, everything is fine and dandy. It turns out there is a women trafficking ring, and they also try to clear Cloak's name with the evil cop brought back from the dark dimension. It's kind of a thing and ongoing, but mostly we are focusing for, and they are also trying to deal with the evil version of the cop lady, but that's also an ongoing thing. So our main focus as a running case is actually the central case is this woman trafficking ring. We have, if you probably guessed it, there is a third superpowered individual from the season 1 episode 1 Roxxon explosion. The city energy went into him too, and he, it is said he had some migraines or whatever because of depression or something, and now he's breaking women down, so he will be normalized by the desperation. Sure, whatever, however it works, it's kind of similar to Cloak and Dagger's power, how it works. I don't know if he has any, real world powers, but he's working in the dungeon dimension. He has a record shop there with everyone's possible lifelines, and that is kind of what happens for the first half of episode 6. We run through the potential versions of Dagger's life, which I didn't mind because there was an issue in X-Men, the comics, not the movies, and I think it's like Generation 3 story where they fought some big villain adversary or something like that. I don't know the English name he has. He was just the enemy, and at the end they met this goddess, whatever, comic book gods. Who knows what they actually are, what defines them? But they got a jewel. She was Gaia, so they got the gate of Gaia, and they all the X-Men who participated in that scenario got the power that they all died and got resurrected by Gaia, and as a side effect of that, they were no longer be able detectable by electronic devices. So either way, they got this gate of Gaia. It's a jewel which could grow to pretty much to, door size. And if you stepped through it, you ended up with a life of an alternative life. One of your potential. There was some vague lore that it judges you. It didn't really tell what were the factors of judging, but probably you got a more peaceful life and that kind of things. But there was Dazzler. Dazzler is the one who could transform sand into light. That's our superpower. she did this, you know, the Charlie's Angels position to shoot laser beams or even solid light. It's just comic book logic, let's go with it. We actually saw one version of her in one of the X-Men, the first class timeline, I think in the Dark Phoenix stuff. I don't want to talk about it, and that's not my favorite version. My version is the skinny, flat-chested, blue clothes version. I like that way more than the busty white clothes version. Anyway, turns out she looked into this because, you know, laser powers and all that, and so she triggered the crystal and looked at it. It's a one full page panel in the comic book, and she saw all her possible lives, and she died very soon in each of them. It's the Broken Star storyline. It's like a continuation of the enemy fight. It's still Generation 3. The X-Men is living in Australia, and it ends up with what will show up in Logan. Those figures, the cyber guys, I don't can recall their names from the right now, and they were led by Deathstrike, Lady Deathstrike, you know, the long fingernail woman from X2. But there she was a cyborg and all that kind of other differences. Either way, so here this villain is doing pretty much that kind of thing, that all these versions of people, and he's finding the ones which are the most miserable, and so they give up all hope. By the way, Dazzler, in the end, pretty much all that era's X-Men are stepping through one way or another this gate of Gaia, and when Dazzler does it, later she pops up in the comics, and I bet that everyone forget in the writing team why this is happening in the comics, but she gets killed and always reappear in a different version of her. And I think that's her reward from Gaia. Either way, back to the Cloak and Dagger. So, Dagger is kidnapped by the woman trafficking ring, and you know, that's still fine. And it turns out, which we pretty much waited, that there is this black community organized by some people in the black, from the blacks, and obviously the villain comes from there. I still have no problem with it, but this is a kind of flat and forced, but you know, it's fine, and the episode still gives at least that much value that they tell you what the villain's shtick is. It's, you know, it doesn't have to be this complicated when we are in the Cloak and Dagger series, because, you know, you just have to establish how their power works, and you don't have to develop it for the villain. Anyway, this ends with Dagger losing all her hopes. So the villain, you know, did his stick, and that's a big mistake, if you ask me, because that destroys Dagger. Not just took away her ability or that. Not just a big setback. This is destroying the character. And the one lesson you should learn: you never destroy the character. If there's a villain that takes away all the hopes and whatever, you can bring your hero to the point of the breaking point, but you cannot break it, whether he or she or it. That's the number one rule. Because that's why he or she or it is the hero. It cannot be broken. The character cannot be broken. And she there gets broken. Why? I just can't understand it. At the end of season 7, she gets back her powers and or her personality and that kind of thing. But then 6 and 7, and even partially 8, because episode 7 flows into 8, it just feels filler. And if people get very disappointed because you wrote a filler, it could have been written well, with a slight changes and all that, but they want this pass, then season 8 is low and heavy. But you still manage to make the audience don't care anymore and only come back somewhat. But then when you get back to the good stuff in episode 9, probably that's a good stuff again, and also 10, because we are done with this dungeon dimension shit and losing orbs and losing power and whatever, and we are actually fighting the villains, so superhero stuff, so there is no reason it being bad. But then in episode 9 you will see where does this come from, and I'm not willing to watch what I skipped, episode 6, 7, 8 in this instance. So the writers fucked themselves with the turn that stripping Dagger from all agency, emptying the character, the lead protagonist. And I don't care that they still have Cloak. The series is Cloak and Dagger. Make the evil version of the cop show up sooner and save her from the breaking point, or represent her not even getting breaked, or when she is ready to give up. Make the evil version of the cop lady show up and start breaking the records. There were ways to make it all the way good. So I don't know what I will do with the remaining episodes. Probably have to tell you how watchable it ends up, but yeah. But at least otherwise it's still good. The Cloak and Dagger, and season 3 of Runaways is actually a fine show. It's nothing game breaking, of course, but still, it's a good show.